All right, everybody. Here we are on episode 24 of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. I am Mike, joined by Wayne, obviously, as usual.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Yeah, we are ready for a very die-hard Christmas. That is what we're talking about this week. It's going to be Die Hard, and then movies relatable to Die Hard when it comes to kind of non-traditional Christmas films. We're excited to talk about this week because we love all sorts of movies, as if you listen to us, you know, but action films is something that we both really enjoy, and we both really enjoy Die Hard, which is, you know, as I talked about a couple weeks ago, there are two perfect movies in my opinion when it comes to action films. The first one was Mad Max Fury Road. The other one was Die Hard. And now we're going to talk about the 1988 John McTiernan, Bruce Willis starring film that for the longest time was just credited as the best action movie ever made. The franchise as a whole, kind of, we could argue if it goes downhill a little bit, which it does, I think, to some extent. Even though the sequels, for the most part, are enjoyable, except for the last one. But
five, let me tell you.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, you could have a whole topic. We could have a whole show on that one. Yeah, but
in the fifth one.
Yeah,
no laughs there. Although that might be a contender for.
It could be because I never finished it, so there very well could be a contender for the worst movies made or awfully good section. But so this movie, like I said, it was been highly touted for many years as the best action movie of all time. Maybe like 5-10 years ago, all of a sudden people are like, well, it is a Christmas movie, so now it's my favorite Christmas movie.
See, I was ahead of the curve on this one. I have been watching Die Hard for Christmas for at least 15 years. At least.
And what's funny about this is I was a late comer to the party because people started saying this, and I was like, no. It's flipping Die Hard. It's not a Christmas movie. When I think Christmas, I think Home Alone. I think It's a Wonderful Life. I think Scrooged. I think even Gremlins to me speaks out more of a Christmas movie than Die Hard did originally. But the more you watch Die Hard and the more you pay attention to it, you do start to realize how deep it is. Christmas is a theme in the movie. The Christmas song that Argyle plays on the radio on the way to Nagatomi Plaza. All the decorations and stuff. I believe there's some lines and stuff in there too from like Rickman and some of the other characters about how it is the holidays. They're having a holiday party. Go ahead, Win.
Ho, ho, ho. Now I have a machine gun.
Yes. Woo! One of the greatest parts of the movie. And the guy's wearing, the dead body is wearing a Santa hat. And I believe there's lights tied around him too, right? Something like that.
I seriously just watched this like a week ago.
I was just watching it last night and I don't remember, and I saw that scene. Yeah, I mean, and I guess the other reason too why I had a hard time considering it a Christmas movie is I watch Die Hard all year round. So it was, you know what I mean? Like when it comes to like Scrooged and those other movies, I usually put them on around the holidays. I never really kind of thought of putting Die Hard on around the holidays, but I came around, and I do agree with everybody that it is a Christmas movie. We're doing this non-traditional Christmas category because next week we'll be doing what we consider to be our ultimate Christmas movies. I know most people would throw this one in there, but I wanted to kind of talk about some other movies that are close relation to Die Hard, you know, in this same category of a type of action Christmas film. So, if you need a plot, John McClane is visiting his wife and kids in California from New York. He's a New York cop. She moved to California. There's right in the beginning you get the sense that he didn't think she was going to stay, so he didn't move out here. Now they're kind of like in a rut, and he's coming to visit her for the holidays to kind of discuss their future. And we meet
really set in motion when he gets there, asks to speak to Holly McClane.
Yes.
And there's no that name. She's going by Gennaro, her maiden name. So I was like, here we go. Okay.
Yep. So right away, you know, there's that tension. You can see he's very upset by that. She's using her maiden name. This is when he gets to the building. He goes upstairs and they have an argument. Someone walks in, so they kind of stop. She goes out, enjoys the party. He goes to the bathroom to kind of wash up, because he just flew on the plane and he's kind of just sweaty and stuff and wants to be clean. And all of a sudden, shit goes down and he hears gunfire. And he sees that there are men out there. He sees his wife out there. He's obviously concerned for her, but he decides the best case scenario is for him to stay hidden with his gun that he has. and try to defuse the situation the best he can. He goes around getting the attention of a local police officer played by Reginald Val
Johnson.
Reginald Val Johnson from Family Matters. Carl Winslow is what our generation came to know him for, even before Die Hard for me, even though it was after Die Hard. Obviously didn't get much into Die Hard till I was a little older. Yeah. So his name is Al, and Al obviously doesn't believe him at first that something's going on until Bruce Willis, John McClane himself, shoots up his car to kind of give him the warning that stuff is going bad. Right, that's what he shoots it. Or is yeah.
He steals he's already killed the first guy, and he's got his machine gun.
Yes. So to get his attention, he shoots the machine gun down, and it causes Al to go backwards, back up, and crash the car.
Sometimes you just got to get your point across.
Exactly. And from that point on, him and Al are tied at the hip. They're friends. We watched John McClane go through and basically dispatch of the villains one by one until, we have some great scenes in there. Wayne, go ahead. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I really want to talk about the Ellis character, played by Hart Bochner, I believe.
You mean Donald Trump Jr.?
Yes, him too.
I mean, come on. He is Ellis.
I always have a respect for the sleaze character, and when they're played particularly well. And John walks into Holly's office, and this guy's doing blow off of her desk in her office, in front of his boss, Mr. It's not Nakatomi. I think it's Takagi, I believe.
I believe so. Yeah.
And I'm just like, I guess it's the '80s, but wow.
It's the '80s. It's a holiday party.
Holly, at one point he tries to go and, make a deal with Hans Gruber. Baby, come on, I got this. I'm your man here.
Hans, baby. Yeah.
So I just wanted to stop and recognize.
Give some props to Ellis. It's a great side character. He plays it really well. And I mean, if we're going to, just to keep talking about this movie, we got to talk about the great and the late Alan Rickman. More coming up on him later in the show, but this was his first theatrical movie. He had done a lot of stage acting over like in England and stuff. This was his first movie. And he kind of just comes on scene and just delivers one of the most coldest, calculated killers in the history of cinema. And has been recognized as such throughout, the years, since this movie has come out now 32 years ago. So he just is so good in this movie. He gives such a stellar performance, and he's a great foil to John McClane. They have a great back and forth. You could tell they were having a fun time making this movie. And it just...
When he goes to find McClane himself, and he just does the pretty much dead-on American accent.
Yes. So good.
For a fool.
Yes.
It's just like, all right. Nice. Because you don't usually, I can't recall another time where this has ever happened in, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head where, the bad guy who's got his British accent and whatever, and just goes total deadpan English and,
yeah.
All right. And awesome.
No, it's really good. And when you do a movie like this, you need a great villain. And that was basically the best villain that you could get. And he was fantastic. And that set his career up for the rest of it. And like I said, we'll get to him more later. But this movie has just become a cornerstone in American cinema. When you talk about holiday films and action films, I believe it to be one of the most perfect action films ever made. And from start to finish, you're on the edge of your seat. It's gripping. It's entertaining. It's funny. Bruce Willis there was a lot of question. If you watch on How This Got Made on Netflix, they go into it. There were a lot of question on whether he could carry a movie. He was a TV star at the time, and people were curious on if he could do it. A lot of producers didn't think he could. He obviously, this set his career up for the next 30 plus years, and it made him that guy, and he keeps going back to the role. There's apparently another one in the works. So this just character won't go away, and it's because of what he brought to it in the 80s. It was just something different than what we had seen before, I think.
I'm trying to think of what his TV show was called. Was it Moonlighting?
Moonlighting, yes.
Okay, yeah, and I mean it's very much like a comedic, romance. Will they? Won't they? Type.
Yes,
so.
It was a comedic show about a couple who were I think it was like a dysfunctional couple. I believe. So the other element that was in the Die Hard discussion when they were casting it was we all know Bruce Willis. We all know what he looks like. He doesn't look like Sly Stallone. He doesn't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Even Steven Seagal at the time, or Van Damme. Those were the type of guys they were looking at because those were your big bodybuilding looking action stars. That's what our action stars looked like in the 80s up until we got Bruce Willis. And then it kind of changed. And it's been that way kind of until, I guess you could say it's kind of going back there with The Rock. But he's kind of a different beast all its own.
Well, you got Jason Bourne. He wasn't really a big, tough, strong.
Jason Bourne, Jason Statham, the actor. He's not he's obviously muscular, but he's not a big dude. So you've got a lot of guys I think that are kind of molded after the Bruce Willis action star, and it was something that in the 80s they just didn't think was going to work, and the directors and the producers won out that wanted Bruce Willis, and it turned out to be the best decision that they could have made. I mean, it's Funkos, Christmas ornaments, T-shirts, and ugly Christmas sweaters and stuff. I mean, it's become a staple.
Don't forget the greatest meme of all time. It's not Christmas until I see Hans Gruber fall off Nakatomi Plaza.
Exactly. There's so much that comes out of this movie. So many great lines. Welcome to the party, pal. That stuff. When he's crawling around.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah. Yippee-ki-yay. Yes, exactly.
And he brings that back in pretty much every Die Hard.
Yep.
It's just like, there is a say it.
Yeah, it's...
the one thing I did want to comment on, and without going into Die Hard, the franchise, too much, Die Hard really always has a kick butt villain.
Yes.
And I can't really say that about the fifth one, because, like you said, you didn't finish it. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but even Live Free or Die Hard, Timothy Olyphant was...
He was really good. Jeremy Irons in the third one. William Sadler in the second one was really good. Lots of good villains, that's for sure. They've always got that one good bad guy and surround him with good henchmen. There were good henchmen in the first one. The second one, there was a bunch of character actors as the henchmen, which was great. You had John Amos from Good Times.
Well, John Stamos?
Not John Stamos, John Amos. Close, though. They look similar. I can understand the confusion. John Amos from Good Times was the general, the one that turned bad as well, and working with him. But
great moments in that one, because that blew. Every time I watch it, I forget. Oh, he's on there. That's right.
Yep. And then you get, of course, the great Dennis Franz from NYPD Blue as the cop that he butts heads with. You get John Leguizamo has a real tiny role in that one. I believe they removed his speaking lines. Sorry, go ahead.
I always forget Dennis Franz is in number 2. Every time I see him, I'm like, that guy.
I think every time I watch it, I'm a little surprised, but then I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, he's in this movie.
Who plays his brother, the cop that tows the car at the beginning?
He's another character actor, another big Italian guy. I'm not sure what his name is. I'm sure I recognize him, obviously. He's in that movie. He's in a lot of other movies. I want to say he was like in Home Alone or something. And he's been in a bunch of stuff.
He's also in Saturday Night Fever, because John Travolta asks what color his wife's ass is.
Oh.
And they back and forth.
Okay.
Like, character actor, and... All right, I'm not seeing it. We can just move forward.
All right, that's fine. So anyway, that guy from Die Hard 2, he's in a bunch of stuff. But Die Hard 2 is something we can mention briefly just because it also takes place on the holidays. It's like a year later, and he's living in LA with his family now, and he's coming back to New York. I forget the reasoning. I think they're coming back to see her parents or just to have like a night on the town or something.
I know it takes place in Dulles in D.C., so it's not New York.
Okay.
Because he's picking Holly up from the airport, and he's got his mother-in-law's car, brand new car.
Is it like anniversary or something? There's something along those lines. It's not important. Anyway, and then terrorists come and take over. And then John McClane has to John McClane. That's how those movies work.
Trying to break out the terrorist who's just been arrested.
Yes.
Pablo type character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, William Sadler is the crazy general that was deemed to be like unfit and kicked out of the military and stuff like that.
The Rock probably seems like it takes a lot in this movie with the U.S. soldier general who feels wronged by his country.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it does. It was a common storyline in the 90s, I think. All right, so we talked Die Hard. We already know, everybody knows we love Die Hard. I wanted to get to our next movie, which definitely has a lot of Christmas elements to it as well. But I do want to start off with some things that I just learned recently. So Lethal Weapon. It's another Christmas action film. I think people kind of forget, but it does. It even starts off with Jingle Bell Rock as the opening song, as a girl is high on drugs and kills herself. So obviously not a very happy Christmas film. Maybe that's why people forget. Mel Gibson kills a couple people at a Christmas tree lot as well.
Talk about another kick-ass villain.
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Lethal Weapon's got two great villains actually that work.
Of the franchise, in my opinion. So
yeah. Lethal Weapon. So Shane Black wrote Lethal Weapon. And Shane Black, we'll talk about some of his other movies in a minute here, but he's big for writing his movies around Christmas. That's just something he's done. But what I've learned recently was that he was actually the one that let them use the Die Hard title for Die Hard, because Die Hard was based on a novel of a different name. And his script, Die Hard, was actually The Last Boy Scout. So he changed it to The Last Boy Scout, let them use Die Hard because Joe Silver produced both movies. And that's how that got its title. So it was from Shane Black. The other Shane Black connection is that Lethal Weapon came out in 1987, was based around the holidays, had a huge Christmas theme. Joe Silver, who produced that movie, loved the holiday theme in that movie and thought it worked really well, and decided to basically take it and insert it into Die Hard, which originally did not have that holiday theme. So I thought that was interesting, that this movie was not necessarily meant to be a holiday film, but because it was kind of a popular theme at the moment, it was added in there. And it's just ironic that it's become one of the most talked about, is it or is it not a Christmas film. So I thought that was interesting. But to get to Lethal Weapon, you get Riggs and Murtaugh, and pretty much everybody's going to know who they are at this point. Mel Gibson, Danny Glover. Murtaugh is, as the old line is throughout the entire franchise, he's getting too old for this shit. And that's he's turning 50 in the movie. And Mel Gibson is his new partner, Martin Riggs. And he's a loose cannon, just a wild guy, wild police officer. Everyone wants to stay away from him. They think he's suicidal. They think he does, or they either think he's suicidal or they think that he's crazy, that he doesn't care about anything else. So either way, that makes him destructible, and they don't like that. So he gets pawned off on Murtaugh because they think that Murtaugh could, kind of maybe handle him and stop him from being so crazy, which is now what happens. But this movie is set around the holidays. It's not necessarily like the main theme of the movie, but it very obviously takes place during Christmas. And what comes after is just a bunch of gunfights and action scenes and Mel Gibson jumping off the roof with the guy who wants to kill himself. And so it was one of my favorite scenes because he just goes all crazy. The guy's like, isn't this what you want? You want to jump, don't you? And he just jumps off the roof onto the jumping pad they have below, waiting for them.
Everybody thinks that Mel Gibson did this great job of acting crazy when in reality, he really was just crazy.
He was just being himself the whole time. Who knew?
Yes, but I digress.
Now, this, and this is something I've always said too, and we could discuss a little bit about it. Like, I will always say Die Hard is the better movie, but I think Lethal Weapon is the better franchise, only because I think the sequels all hold up more than the Die Hard movies. And I think, like I said, I like some of the Die Hard sequels, but I do think their value is so much less than the first movie, where in the Lethal Weapon franchise, I don't think it falls off that far. Now, some people may disagree with me, but I don't think it does.
The only Die Hard that I really just don't like is the last one. I love Live Free, Die Hard.
Yeah, I like that one a lot, too. I'm thinking more the second one was the kind of disappointment, even though we just talked about it. But there was some disappointing things in the second one, I thought. It's Rennie Harlan, who tends to make not great movies. Even though he is...
Samuel L. Jackson and...
Well, yeah, the third one is great, obviously. What I like about the Lethal Weapon franchise, what they do with the second one, they bring in Joe Pesci, who is a staple now in that franchise. Like, if they ever do a fifth one like they're talking about, you're going to have to bring Pesci back. There's no way it's going to work without him. They bring in Renee Russo in the third one, and she's great. So, I mean, they were good at bringing in new characters and making it work.
That was where they brought Chris Rock in.
Yep, in the fourth one, they bring Chris Rock, who plays Butters, who's the detective who's going to marry Murtaugh's daughter, unbeknownst to Murtaugh. He does not know this. Murtaugh starts to think that he is into him because he's being so nice to him. That's a funny element of that movie. That movie also introduced the world to Jet Li. So it did the Lethal Weapon did do that. I know a lot of people obviously knew who he was before then, but 1998 Lethal Weapon 4 was his first American film, and that was, I think, a big deal for him, as for him and American audiences.
How about when Murtaugh's daughter's trying to get into acting and she's got the condom commercial, but they don't know it's about condoms?
Yes, that was fantastic. That was the first one. That was she was only like 18. And I remember he's got like all his buddies over to watch her commercial, and then the like cable repair guys in the background, who I believe is Jack McGee from Rescue Me, and he's in the background and he's like watching it with them, and Murtaugh is like, nice looking babe, huh? And it's just like Murtaugh looks like he wants to kill him. It's great. But yeah, so Lethal Weapon to me has always been one of my favorite action films. The fact that it's a holiday movie as well, I think is awesome. I just don't think it gets talked about enough because, like I said, I will agree Die Hard is better, so people put Die Hard above it, and I understand that. But I think not enough people talk about how Lethal Weapon is also a Christmas movie, and it deserves the respect for kind of being the first action movie to do it, I think.
Absolutely.
Of our generation, anyway. I know there were some other movies that were listed, Christmas movies that I hadn't seen, so I didn't put them on this list. Obviously, there was like some from like 20 years before this or whatever. But this is the one that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to talk Shane Black too. But Wayne, what are your thoughts of Lethal Weapon overall as a movie and as a holiday film?
Honestly, the way you described it is like, I enjoy the franchise very much, but when it comes down to it, I mentioned earlier that I'm a big fan of the Die Hard franchise, so I always kind of that one over the Lethal Weapons. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with those movies at all. It's just, I don't know. I kind of forget about them, honestly, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say that, but
you should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I can, I can talk about all the first four Die Hards, ad nauseum. I couldn't even remember which one Joe Pesci was introduced in or when Chris Rock came. It's like,
Yeah, it's always been one of my favorite franchises. I know that Vinny Barbera, our friend, was also a big fan of Lethal Weapon. We would talk about that often. Yeah. But yeah, so the other thing that's important about the Lethal Weapon franchise is it was basically not the first movie of Shane Black's career, but the first one that he introduced Christmas into it. They made it a theme. And he kind of became known for that over the years. So his other movies that he did The Last Boy Scout, which, like I said before, was originally supposed to be called Die Hard. The ironic thing about The Last Boy Scout is it also stars Bruce Willis. Takes place around the holidays. It stars Damon Wayans and Halle Berry briefly. It's a very fun, entertaining early 90s action film. If you haven't seen it, I really highly recommend it. The Christmas, again, it's similar to Lethal Weapon. It kind of just takes place around Christmas. It's not a huge theme throughout the movie, but there are lots of good moments and lots of good Shane Black moments because he's such a great writer with the comedy and the action. Bruce Willis is fantastic. Him and Damon Wayans play off of each other very well. And it's definitely something I recommend. The other ones, though, I think people will obviously know Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 does have a Christmas setting. I think people probably forget about that just because it's a Marvel movie. We don't think about holiday movies. That was Shane Black. He directed that one. Also, The Long Kiss Goodnight. And that one is a Christmas movie. It takes place, like, a lot of it unravels during, like, a Christmas party. It's a great flick. Samuel L. Jackson. Gina Davis is the star, obviously. My favorite line is Samuel L. Jackson, though. It's the, you know what happens when you make what happens when you make an assumption? You make an ass out of you and umption. One of my favorite lines of a movie, and it was just fantastic, and he is great in that movie, along with Gina Davis, who's just a kick-ass female star in that film. Kind of a shame that, like, she did Cutthroat Island, and then everyone's like, no, she can't be an action star anymore. It's like, that was one bad movie. But this movie was was really good. And if you can find it, definitely, I highly, highly recommend that one. The other ones are Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and The Nice Guys. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is more of a Christmas thing. The Nice Guys, it's kind of just at the end. So if you're looking for kind of film noir Christmas action films, check out Shane Black. Check out his catalog. He's got lots of them on there. Two from last week on this list, Krampus and Bad Santa. We had them in the dysfunctional family list, but they are also non-traditional Christmas movies, I think, just because they're different in their own ways. One's a horror film, and the other one's just a hard R-rated, super R-rated comedy, which is great. Another one, though, I really wanted to talk about that I think is great, and I was just watching it, actually, before we jumped on here, it was Gremlins. 1984. Joe Dante, Zach Galligan, Corey Feldman, Phoebe Cates, Judge Reinhold, Dick Miller. Just a great all-around supporting cast in this movie. Obviously, if you're a movie fan, you know Gremlins, you know Gizmo, you know Stripe. Those are the main gremlins, the good gremlin and the bad gremlin. Gremlins, basically, it's a story of a man who buys his son a Christmas present from a market from a Chinese man, and it's a Mogwai, which turns out to be Gizmo. Cute, cuddly, kind of like a Furby. If you know what Furbies are, that's basically where Furbies took their look from. And we love Gizmo. Gizmo has become a staple, I think, in most households. It's a great, dark kids movie to show kids if you want to go that route. It's not... It is I wouldn't say it's like a dark, like sad movie. It does have a happy ending, and there are lots of really funny moments in it. But it is kind of, more of a horror film, holiday film than it is just a straight up holiday movie.
Definitely got the jump scares, that's for sure.
Yeah, it does. And it's got some really like gross out moments, because there's the gremlins when they turn from cute and fuzzy into the gross looking gremlins. It's pretty disgusting. But that's what it was in the 80s. That's how we liked our kids movies. Our kids movies were pretty dark, pretty gross at times for the most part. Lots of, practical effects and stuff in this movie. So they gets the gremlin. You're not supposed to feed it after midnight, and you're not supposed to get it wet. So he gets it wet by accident. Many more gremlins are born from it. Or Mogwai, sorry. Are born from it. And then the other Mogwai are not really good Mogwai. They're bad, and they want to cause mischief. So they change the clock on him, and he accidentally feeds them after midnight, and that's what causes them to turn into the nasty gremlins, and they go on a rampage of murder and mayhem. It's always fun to me that when you get a kids movie that has so much murder in it, like it just has a lot, and so many holiday themes throughout the whole movie. It is definitely a Christmas movie. There's no argument about it. It takes place on Christmas. It's about the Mogwai as a Christmas gift for his son. And there's a story that Phoebe Cates tells about why she hates Christmas. It was like the day her dad died. And it's just this horrible, depressing story right in the middle of a comedy. And it almost is taken out of the movie, but the director, Joe Dante, and the producers, they were able to get them to keep it in. And it was much better for the movie that they did, because it adds a little more realism to it. And it's just such a great flick. It's another one that I just don't know that people think about when they think Christmas movies, but it really is a true Christmas movie. It's just a little darker than most. And that's how, again, we've talked last week, that's how I like my Christmas movies. Even when we get into our ultimate list next week, there's some on there for me that are a little bit darker than the normal ones that a lot of people choose. But yeah, it's always been one of my favorites. Wayne, any your thoughts on Gremlins?
Gremlins is a classic. I just, just fond memories of watching that back with me as a little kid with my parents, and, just the just the whole Gizmo aspect. And it's like, honestly, they had to have made a toy, or like the stuffed Mogwai action figures, but I don't know if I just wasn't loved enough and I never got one, or what the deal. But
that's probably it. I know you, so that's understandable.
I always wanted one just to get it wet, though.
Yes.
I didn't know that Chris Columbus wrote this movie.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he was writing a lot of movies back in the 80s before he got to direct Home Alone. Home Alone was his first big budget movie he got a hold of. He was supposed to direct Christmas Vacation, had a couple meetings with Chevy Chase that did not go well. And if people know Chevy Chase, they know that he's kind of an a-hole. And they did not gel well. And what's his name? Who was the writer of those movies? He's dead now. John Hughes. John Hughes liked Chris Columbus so much, he felt bad for how Chevy treated him that he basically said, "What do you want to do?" And he had this script, Home Alone, and that's what Chris Columbus got to direct. And that's kind of what started his directing career, was not being liked by Chevy Chase. So that's an interesting way to get your start. But yes, he wrote Gremlins. He wrote a bunch of movies in the 80s. I listened to him on a podcast, and he was talking about it. And he was just all over the place. I mean, he was kind of had his fingerprints everywhere. And it's funny that if you go back and look at a lot of his movies he wrote, you're like, oh, I'm a fan of that movie. I'm a fan of that movie. I'm a fan of that movie. You're just like, Jesus. But yeah, I mean, even I wanted to talk about too, the theme. The Gremlins score is so, like, it's not one of those ones I can always do off the top of my head, but then when I watch the movie, I just play it over and over, and I'm humming it and I'm singing it. You know, it's dun, 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 dun. Yes, that's it.
How do you feel about Gremlins 2?
I love Gremlins 2. Gremlins 2 is different. What was nice about the 80s is the directors were able to push back on what the studios wanted. The studios wanted another Gremlins that was basically exactly the same. Joe Dante said he wouldn't come back and do it unless he was able to do his own thing. It made a lot of money, so the studios were less pushy back then. They were just like, all right, fine, go ahead. That's why you have Gremlins 2, which is extremely different than Gremlins 1. You have Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Extremely different than Chainsaw Massacre 1 because he got a lot of freedom on 2. And so you take these sequels in the 80s and they're just kind of they were able to do their own thing. And I think the movies are better for it. Bill and Ted Bogus Journey, I think, falls in that category too. Completely different movie than the first one. Very much darker than the first one, like Gremlins 2. Which, if you believe, could you get darker? Well, actually, Gremlins 2 was darker, but also campier at the same time, because it takes it into that whole musical number where they're singing New York, which is always one of my favorite scenes.
Yes.
That movie, it's so good. It's another Christmas movie. I think people forget that both of them are Christmas films. But yeah, Gremlins, it's just something I wanted to talk about because those are some of my favorite movies. Other ones on the list, Edward Scissorhands is another really good Christmas flick. Very good fantasy. It's basically Frankenstein, but it's, Johnny Depp is charismatic as hell in that movie. So as is Winona Ryder and the rest of the cast, Diane Wiest. Anthony Michael Hall's in that one, the 80s star, Brat Pack alum. And that was a 1990 film, so that was a really good movie. Vincent Price obviously has a small part in that one of his last roles. Batman Returns. That's another one that I think people kind of forget, but that takes place around the holidays and is, for all essential purposes, is a Christmas movie. However, it's a Batman movie first. But Tim Burton, as we'll talk a little bit about him next week, obviously big into Christmas. He was another guy. He maybe didn't put it in all his movies, but right now I just mentioned two, Edward Scissorhands and Batman Returns. And obviously everybody knows what his other one is that we'll talk about next week. But some horror movies. Black Christmas. There's 3 of those. Silent Night, Deadly Night. Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale. Wayne, this one is cool. This is a kid in a village in Russia or something. I forget where exactly it takes place. And this stuff starts happening at night, and these creatures are kind of around. Well, it turns out that those creatures are Santa's elves, and they're coming to wreak havoc, basically. And they realize that Santa is actually bad. It's kind of like Krampus before people knew what Krampus was. And it was just an evil Santa. A very cool story. I think a lot of people, American audiences, may not know this. It's definitely a genre film. It's on Shudder, I believe, right now. I think it may even be in a couple other places. Really, I highly recommend that one. It's a lot of fun. This one I never even realized, but Eyes Wide Shut apparently takes place during the holidays. That's a movie about weird sex clubs, starring Tom Cruise.
That was Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman together, and
yep,
all excited. Yeah, that was oh gosh, who directed that?
Stanley Kubrick.
Did he actually direct that, or was that somebody?
No, that was his last full feature that he directed. He died during AI.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, but this weird movie.
It's very bizarre. I've heard my buddies that really like it tell me to watch it again. Now, I saw it when I was 16. And you're right. The appeal to a 16-year-old was that Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were in a movie that was NC-17, right? That was the big deal back then. So it was really, when I went and saw it, it was just really strange because I was 16 years old and not expecting what I was witnessing. So I do want to give it another watch because I hear if you, like, as an adult, it's not as bad as I remember as a child. Because it was just so weird and bizarre. Like I said, I don't really remember the holiday theme that was in there, though. I guess it takes place during the holidays, so.
I saw it, within the last 10 years, and it's still pretty weird to me, but...
Let's see. Jingle All the Way, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Sinbad. Also, the late Phil Hartman as well as in that one.
Yes.
This is a fun kids movie from when I was a kid. I know a lot of people hate that movie now. There's a lot of because it's about,
Was Jake Lloyd the kid from Star Wars?
I believe so. Yes. The reason people hate it is because it glorifies consumerism. It's, fighting over a doll that their kids want for Christmas. However, as an adult who has a child, I kind of get it. I've never had to do that, thankfully, because we live in a different world these days. But I know my parents did. They had to deal with stuff like that, of giving me and my sister, the Cabbage Patch dolls. I was 3, I think, or 2 when those came out. So they're like, oh, we got to get both of them one. And that was getting a golden frickin' goose, something very rare.
Like the Power Ranger toys back when we were...
Power Ranger toys. The other one I remember is Teddy Ruxpin, which my parents did procure for me, and then took back to the store because it terrified the shit out of me. I don't know if it was a smart idea for them to set it on the end of my bed on my toy box. Probably not, because it was staring at me, and that scared the crap out of me. Probably why I like horror films, though, so maybe I have to give them a little credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was calling itself Chucky, so who knows, right?
Right, exactly. Let's see. Harry Potter 1 and 2, they definitely have a lot of Christmas theme throughout those movies. Funny enough, directed by who? Chris Columbus. So they're, another Christmas themed director in there. Yeah. LA Confidential apparently has a Christmas theme. I love that movie. I don't remember the Christmas theme to it, though. Couple more horror films. Red Christmas, Better Watch Out, and Christmas Evil. Christmas Evil about a killer Santa Claus. Kind of fun movie. Similar to Silent Night, Deadly Night, but Silent Night, Deadly Night was like a crazy guy who lost his parents and then went crazy and started axing people up. The second one has become famous for being really bad. If you could watch that one that's out there. The last one we'll talk about, though, Wayne, I think this is a really good Christmas movie. I don't know when the last time we saw it was. Trading Places.
Merry New Year!
Directed by John Landis, starring Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd, Jamie Lee Curtis. Just a fun, R-rated holiday film about the rich getting screwed over in the end, which is nice. Something you don't always see, I guess.
Boy, that's something that we need to see right now in today's society.
Right, exactly.
It was angel dust.
John Landis directed it. It was written by Timothy Harris and Herschel Weingrod. It stars, as we said, Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy, but Ralph Bellamy, Don Amici, Denholm Elliott, and, as we also said, Jamie Lee Curtis. It's a fun movie about a guy played by Dan Aykroyd who's like this stockbroker, but he's a good guy. He doesn't like screwing people over. He likes to help people. Well, these two rich brothers who kind of run the firm that he works at have this bet that they can turn him into a poor, basically bankrupt him and make someone else rich in like a week. And no one would notice and no one would really care. And they'd be able to do it very easily. So there's a $1 bet between the two brothers who are a-holes, obviously. Played by the late Don Amici and the late Ralph Bellamy. As Denholm Elliott from Indiana Jones plays Dan Aykroyd's character's butler. It's a great flick. It's a great holiday movie. I think one of the best memories people have of it is Dan Aykroyd hammered out of his mind in that Santa costume. It's just so good. Lots of good characters come walking through that movie too. Just a great supporting cast. Eddie Murphy was probably, that was I think his first like starring role. Like it gave him the time to shine, and he was great. And I think he ran with it, and obviously he made a career after that movie. And it's just so fun. It's such a fun movie. I really enjoy it. Paul Gleason is in that one as well. Jim Belushi is one of the Santas, I believe. Or no, A Party Goer on New Year's Eve. I'm thinking of a different movie where he plays a Santa. Yeah, I mean, it's just such a good movie. And Jamie Lee Curtis, it was one of her bigger roles following Halloween. Kind of put her into the mainstream, I would say. Even though Halloween was a big movie, it was still technically an independent horror film. So this kind of showed that she had the charisma to kind of like carry a movie like this. And she was really good, holding her own against the two male co-stars. And it was just a lot of fun. I've watched this movie a handful of times. It's really a great holiday movie. It's on this list just because it is kind of unorthodox. Lots of swearing, there's some nudity, some sex, and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily for the kiddies, more of the adult holiday fun. But it's just a really good comedy. If someone out there hasn't seen it or hasn't seen it in a while, I really recommend checking it out.
Absolutely, man.
All right, so following that, we are going to go into our review of the week, and we're going to come in with a little bit of difference of opinion here. We reviewed the brand new David Fincher movie starring Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried called Mank. We go through the rest of the cast here. It was written by David Fincher. Apparently, it was based on a script by his late father, Jack Fincher. David Fincher and Eric Roth found this, or David Fincher found the script, and him and Eric Roth worked on rewrites. They went uncredited in the rewrites, so his dad could have full credit after his death, which I thought was a nice touch, tribute to his father. Yep. As we already mentioned, Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried. It stars Lily Collins, Arliss Howard, Tom Pelphrey, Sam Troughton, Ferdinand Kingsley, Tuppence Middleton, Tom Burke, Joseph Cross, Jamie McShane, Toby Leonard Moore, Monica Grossman, and from Game of Thrones, Charles Dance. So Mank, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory of this movie, what it's about. Is about Herman Mankiewicz, who is one of the credited writers on the movie Citizen Kane, written and directed and starring Orson Welles, which is about big movie mogul played by Charles Dance. It's loosely about his character, William Randolph Hearst, who was a huge newsman back in the day. RKO Pictures plus Orson Welles already had run-ins with him in the 1930s, which is what led to this screenplay being written. Mankiewicz is portrayed here as kind of a goofball, alcoholic. He's a writer in the 1930s Hollywood, basically just working for MGM as like a fill-in writer when they need someone to write good jokes for a movie or come up with a new plot line to send it in a different direction. That's what he does. And so we're told basically this story takes place in two timelines. 1940, which is when Citizen Kane was written, and then the 1930s, basically starting in like 1933 all the way to like 38, I want to say. And in that time, we kind of that's when we get to learn who Herman Mankiewicz was. We're seeing him in Citizen Kane and already who he is. We get to kind of learn how he got to where he is and why he's writing this screenplay. People that have read it already know who it's about, and they're worried for him and worried for Orson that they're going to piss people off. Orson Welles was seen as this wonderkin when he came to Hollywood. RKO picked him up, signed him to a contract, basically gave him autonomy to do whatever he wanted, and he wanted to make this movie. People were jealous of him. A lot of directors did not like him because of his bullheadedness and his ability to get to do whatever the heck he wanted. A lot of them, like Barrymore and Houston, wanted to do what they wanted to do, and they weren't allowed to do it. But for some reason, Orson Welles was given the right to do whatever he wanted. He was known as a very brilliant Broadway director, producer, actor, and that's why he got this deal. He went and immediately went after Herman Mankiewicz, Mank, played by Gary Oldman, who he admired as a writer. He hired him to do this movie, and it was known that he was an alcoholic, so they made sure that he had no alcohol around him, and there was possibly alcohol around to reward him if he did well. So they kind of had keep him as a pet. He broke his leg in a car accident prior to writing Citizen Kane, so he's kind of stuck in the house anyway. Lily Collins, Phil Collins' daughter, she is an actress, and many people know her. She plays the woman that kind of keeps care of him, one of the two women, and she builds a great rapport with her. It takes time, but it's really, I think it came off really well. Amanda Seyfried plays the actress that was dating Charles Randolph Hearst throughout most of the 30s and 40s, and that was Marion Davies. She wasn't really regarded as a great actress. She did, I guess, mostly comedy. When she tried to do serious stuff, she only did it because her husband or lover allowed her to. Anyway, so this movie is directed by David Fincher. It's about cinema, but it's also very political, which is not something I necessarily expected going into this film. There are a lot of parallels drawn between the 1930s. If you remember what happened in the 1930s, that was when World War II was getting ready to ramp up, led by a certain man named Adolf Hitler. It's funny to hear. It was funny for me to hear the characters like Arliss Howard's character Mayer, the runner of MGM, talk about Hitler as being a goofball and not something to be taken seriously. No one's going to believe him. And to kind of think about today, about 4 years ago, when people were saying that about Donald Trump before he won the election. So it was funny. Obviously, this movie was changed. It was written years ago, but it was changed, obviously, to kind of, I'm sure, to tie in some of those political things that were happening back then into today. But I like I said, I just didn't expect it to occur that way in this type of movie. It is definitely a movie for cinephiles. If you're into movies, like if you're into studying movies, this is a movie for you. If you like Citizen Kane, or at least like how they made Citizen Kane, it's definitely an insight into how that happened. It's more on the writing side and more about Mankiewicz, though. So if you're looking for a behind the scenes of Citizen Kane, that's not this movie. There are other movies that delve into that. This one does not really go into it outside of the writing, and then it talks about the Oscars and stuff after the fact. This is, like I said before, this is a movie we kind of come down on two different fences in this one. I thought it was great. I loved it. I'm glad I watched it while my wife was sleeping, because she would have hated this movie, and I know it for sure. And it always, disappointment's not the right word, because everybody has the right to like whatever movie they want or whatever they don't. That's how we live. That we all have the right to our own opinions. It just, when I like a movie so much and someone else doesn't like it, and I'm sure, Wayne, even though you didn't really like this one that much, you understand what I'm saying. Like, you want someone, if you love a movie so much or appreciate a movie so much, you want other people to like this movie. Otherwise, it kind of makes you feel like, oh, well, is there something I missed that makes it not good or what? You kind of go through questioning it. But yeah, I really dug this movie. I'm a huge David Fincher fan. I'm a huge fan of cinema, of old school cinema, modern cinema, anything that has to do with it. His directing style has always been one of my favorites. A lot of traditional Fincher stuff in this. You got the slow zooms all the time, the nice wide shots, lots of great performances in this movie. I would be surprised if you don't get an Oscar nomination for Gary Oldman and an Oscar nomination for Amanda Seyfried. I could even see some in for Thomas Pelfrey, who plays Gary Oldman's brother, or even Charles Dance, even Arliss Howard, who plays Mayer. All of those characters at least have one like Academy type worthy scene in the movie that you could even easily see them picking that scene and going, well, this person's getting a nomination this year.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if more than one actor from this gets nominated for like best supporting actor.
Yeah.
In a situation like that, it's like one takes away from the other, so it's like
Yes, if you're a studio, you kind of try to always push for one because you don't want the other one to take away from it. Sometimes it's hard to do, like something like The Irishman, where it was a foregone conclusion that Pacino and Pesci were going to be nominated, and then neither one of them won. Now, is that why they lost? Not necessarily, but it's a fact of what happened. So with this movie, that could definitely be a possibility. I could see many different nominations. I really hope Seyfried gets nominated because I thought she was really good in this. I assume that it's a foregone conclusion that Gary Oldman's going to get nominated. It's very much loved by critics. The Oscars love cinema. They love movies about cinema. So I think you could definitely guess it's going to get a fair shake at the Oscars. Whether people think it's deserved or not, I don't know. It's just to each their own, I guess, when it comes to it. Wayne, you want to give some of your thoughts on this movie? I know you weren't digging it as much as I was.
It's not that I didn't like it or I didn't dig it. I really think that Citizen Kane is kind of overrated. I don't think I know I'm looking at it with today's eyes and it's not viewing it back in the day, because when it was before its time, amazing achievement and whatnot. And I don't know if I just got a problem with the main guy and think he's a jerk and all that stuff. it's just the story is not for me. However, just the way it was made and the look and the feel, it felt old timey. It felt like it was made in the 30s like that. You know,
Yes.
It gave me a Wizard of Oz type vibe watching it.
Yes.
You know,
and you know what? Thanks for bringing it up, because I forgot to mention that they shot it like Citizen Kane. So it even has like the film burns in it as well. And the cuts, it does the fades to black before it does the cut, which I thought was great. He really wanted this movie to look like Citizen Kane, and he did such a good job with that. And again, Fincher is just a master at this kind of stuff. So like this kind of stuff is easy to him, I think. I won't say it's easy on anybody, but he just makes it look easy. He's just so good at doing his craft that, you know, I think this will be a movie that gets recognized for sure. I think we're to the point in the Oscars where it's going to be, with the exception of Parasite from this year, it is hard to do like a clean sweep of the Oscars. People are saying this one's going to do it. I kind of don't believe that. I think we're going to get it more spread out again. Again, we'll have more shows where we talk about Oscars and stuff when more of the movies come out. This is just an early front runner, obviously. But yeah, the fact that he made it look like Citizen Kane was a huge plus for me. I just thought that was a really cool idea. I also love the score from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. It's a little different than we're used to from them. Trent Reznor has done a lot of Fincher's movies recently, and a lot of more industrial, kind of like Nine Inch Nails sounding scores. This one obviously did not warrant that, and they gave him something different. And Trent Reznor is a kind of like a musical genius, so he can kind of do it all. And I thought the score was really good. You'll probably see that, I would imagine, get nominated as well. But yeah, so I mean, if you're interested in cinema, you're interested in movies, you're interested in what happened to the making of Citizen Kane, this movie is not 100% truthful. There's obviously a lot of stuff. If you could go find articles where people are defending Orson Welles, saying he wasn't this horrible man that everyone made him out to be. I honestly don't think he was a horrible man. I think he was an artist. And artists, a lot of times, they come off as arrogant just because of their art, just because they are artists. And to the outside world, that looks like he's difficult to work with. He's a horrible person. I don't know that that's the case with him. A lot of people say it wasn't. I tend to kind of lean that way. I also don't think that Fincher really showed him to be as abusive as people say he was, or say he did. Like I read an article where it's like someone's like, "Oh, I watched it and I couldn't believe how horrible Orson was portrayed." I'm like, I really didn't get the idea that he was portrayed horribly. I just thought he was, honestly, to me, he was portrayed like a movie director. It's like how I see any movie director: Spielberg, Lucas, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez. They all have to have, I think, a little bit of arrogance to do what they do. They're in charge of so much when it comes to a movie that when you look at them, to the normal person, to someone like Charles Randolph Hearst, who didn't have a creative bone in his, William Randolph Hearst, Charles Foster Kane from Citizen Kane, William Randolph Hearst didn't have a creative bone in his body. They're jealous of these people. They're jealous that they're able to do something they can't. The people that worked against Orson Welles were the type of people that most of us would be against. They were the rich, fat cats at the top of the studios that thought he was going to ruin the movie industry. And guess what? He didn't. The movie industry kind of ruined itself, really.
I'm glad you took it this direction, because that's what I was going to say. It's like, oh, did the big studio executives not get their way?
Yeah.
Well, let's seem like he's a jagoff, so nobody wants to work with him.
Yes. And that's exactly what happened. And it's sad because Citizen Kane, if you remember, didn't get panned, but it didn't get a lot of press because of Randolph Hearst. He made sure that people put this movie down. And what is interesting to me about it too is Citizen Kane is a sympathetic portrait of a rich man who kind of lost everything, and when his last moment thought of something that was appropriate, or that was something he longed for, which was his childhood. And there was rumors that William Randolph Hearst had a rough childhood, which is why they tied that in. Everybody knows Rosebud at this point, I think. So it's interesting to me because I know Orson did not like him, and the idea was to make him kind of look like a madman, but he ends up giving him a sympathetic portrait. I think in the movies you kind of end up feeling bad for this man at the end of his life. And so it's just always interesting to me to see how people react to this type of movie. Again, whether Orson Welles was a genius or not, that remains to be seen. I don't know. That's always kind of up to the person's opinion. I've always enjoyed Citizen Kane. I really like the technical aspect of it. The opening, everybody knows a shot where it comes in through the window, through the ceiling. Just amazing for 1942. I mean, something that was really hard to do back then. But yeah, so I mean, if you like Hollywood, you like history, you like cinema, give this movie a watch. It's about the acting, it's about the writing, it's about the performances. It's great all the way through, in my opinion. Fincher does a great job. Oldman is fantastic. Seyfried really gives a career performance, I think, in this movie, and should be, I would hopefully at least be nominated, maybe not win, but just be nominated for it. But yeah, so that's our review of Mank. So hopefully you guys will watch it on Netflix and let us know. Email us, message us, whatever. We'll talk about it with you. That right? Going right from here, we're going to get into Gone but Not Forgotten, and we already mentioned the man. But before that, when we talk about a few deaths that occurred this week, we already talked about him a couple weeks ago.
Hey, Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley.
Okay, we'll mention him first. Yes, David Lander, who played Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley, he passed away at 73 years old. I was a big fan of this show growing up on the reruns. I loved Laverne and Shirley. I loved him and Michael McKean, who played the other counterpart to his Squiggy. I'm not remembering his name at the moment, but they were both great together. They were lots of fun. So that's sad to see. He was also in a League of Their Own as one of the announcers, and I thought he was fantastic in that. The other actor that passed away, we talked about a couple weeks ago, Hugh Keys Byrne, the Mad Max villain. He played Toe Cutter in the original Mad Max and Immortan Joe in the most recent one, Fury Road. He passed away also at 73. So rest in peace to both of those actors. They will be missed. But the one we are going to talk about today is Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman, as we talked about, made his acting debut in cinema as Hans Gruber in the classic holiday film, Die Hard. He passed away in 2016. It was sad. No one knew he was sick. It was another one of those, he got sick. He wanted to keep it from everybody. It was personal, and that's obviously, as fans, we understand. It's his life, not ours. They just entertain us, right? So it's the way they want to go out is the way they want to go out, and that's how he wanted to. And afterwards, the tributes were all over the place. As they should have been, because from my understanding, he was not only one of the greatest villains of all time in movies, a couple other movies that we'll talk about too. He was just a really nice person. Everybody had nothing but great things to say about him when he passed away. How great he was to work with, how great he was as a director and a writer and a friend and a performer, and he was just awesome to be around. And that's always great to hear. When you hear these stories, unlike someone like when we talk about John Belushi, and it was a very tragic ending and kind of disastrous. This one was more like it sucked, but at the same time, like at least he went peaceful. He was hurting obviously, so he was no longer hurting. He was relatively young still. He was only, let me see here, 69. So while that may seem old to a lot of people, that's still relatively young these days. Yeah, he was just... Go ahead.
I just wanted to talk just about how Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and Rupert Grint, the three big stars from Harry Potter, they were on record after Alan passed away about how much they learned from him and being in with him, and his portrayal of Severus Snape, one of the what it turned out to be an anti-hero. Spoiler if you haven't seen or read the book.
Too bad.
But, yeah. Just, great to hear. Another of his movies that I just want to make sure that we talk about is Robin Hood.
Yes.
The Prince of Thieves, where he played the Sheriff of Nottingham, 1991. And he had such a comedic undertone in this. Just the multiple levels of the character. When you think Sheriff of Nottingham, Robin Hood, one-dimensional, right? Well, while yes, he was one-dimensional, just the levels of personality that he had and just the subtleness that he brought to that character, just fantastic.
I also want to, yes, he was great in that movie. I'm glad you brought that one up because that was one of my favorite performances of his. It's a movie I love. I know a lot of people hate it because of Kevin Costner and how not great he is in it. But even the people that don't like it admit that the best part about it is Alan Rickman. He's fantastic in that movie. He has a great back and forth with character actor Michael Wincott, who plays his like sidekick, who it does not fare well for him later in the movie because he keeps failing. But it's a great character for him to kind of sink his teeth in, especially just 3 years removed from Die Hard. And he was fantastic, and I think people remember him almost as much for that as they do for Die Hard. Now, Die Hard's obviously up there, but that's another great performance of his. There are some other good ones for sure. Another Christmas one, which I think we'll talk more about next week. But I'll just mention Love Actually and how much Wayne and we both really like this movie. We'll get into it next week, but I just wanted to bring that up during this segment because he was great in that movie and one of the main stars of that movie. He was also in another one of my favorite, actually 1999, big year for him, for genre fans. Dogma, directed by Kevin Smith. He played Metatron. Fantastic. Just such a great role for him in such a weird movie that I love so much to this day. Such a great film by Kevin Smith. My favorite Kevin Smith movie. And he is so good in it because you know what? Some people go into these Kevin Smith movies, they see his movies, they know that he's not a great actor, he may not be the best writer or director, so they don't give their best. Alan Rickman was never that guy. He always gave his best, and he gave it all to Metatron and Dogma, which is a movie surrounded by dick and fart jokes, which is most of Kevin Smith's writing and comedy jokes, that has this acclaimed actor, Alan Rickman, in this role. I mean, the story that Kevin Smith told about Dogma and Jason Mewes was in, he plays Jay, obviously, and they had this conversation, and Kevin Smith wanted to make sure, he was kind of messing with him a little bit, but he wanted to make sure that Mewes is professional. He's like, hey man, we got, Alan Rickman in this movie. Hans Gruber is in our movie. You got to be professional on set, man. You got to know your stuff. And Smith didn't think he would take it seriously because it's one of his best friends, and so he goes down to tell a story. He's like, he comes to set and he's like, Jay, where's your script? He's like, dude, I memorized all the lines. I gotta show my respect to this Rickman dude. That was like the way he put it, Rickman dude. And so it's just like the fact that a junkie at the time, or recovering junkie at the time, Jason Mewes, was able to kind of get it together to not disappoint Kevin Smith in front of the great Alan Rickman. I think it's just kind of a great story to who Alan Rickman was, and that he had garnered that much respect that everybody wanted to make sure he was happy when he was there, even though, from what I understand, that probably wasn't needed. Like, he was just a regular guy who was happy to be there, but people, because he was so nice to them and loved by everybody, they wanted to make him feel good and wanted to make him happy.
A girl in your PJs, stop asking so many questions.
That same year, he had a movie that has become a cult classic, and that was Galaxy Quest. Directed by Dean Parasout, who just did the most recent Bill and Ted movie. It starred Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Tony Shalhoub, Sam Rockwell, and Alan Rickman. And Alan Rickman plays basically like the Spock of the fake Galaxy Quest TV show. He's hounded at every Comic-Con by all the nerds to deliver his like one famous line that they all love, and he hates it because he's an actor. It's such a good role for him. It really it's a role like that, similar to Dogma, shows his comedic chops. Like in Dogma, one of my favorite parts is when he goes to wipe the blood off of his suits, because he always gets his suits all messy, with God's robe. Remember, he grabs Alanis Morissette's robe, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I apologize." Like, it's just such a God. People need to watch Dogma. That's what you need to come away with from this section here. Watch Dogma. Appreciate Alan Rickman.
Love Alan Rickman, or you want to know more? Watch Dogma.
Yes.
Watch it for him, and just come with anything else that is just bonus with that film.
Yes, and like I've said, Galaxy Quest, also a really fun movie. Blow Dry, a movie with him and Josh Hartnett from 2001. Very good. We're going to have a whole discussion, probably a couple episodes, about the Harry Potter movies. But Wayne, what does it mean to you being part of one of your favorite film and book franchises?
The fact that it seems like the role of Severus Snape was written specifically for Alan Rickman, and he just portrays that dislikable son of a bitch to a T. I mean, he's written as the character through the first, all the books, honestly, as just a conniving, arrogant scumbag. And Alan Rickman just brings it out, and at the end of the seventh book, or the eighth movie, you realize that it's all just an act.
Yep.
It's all because it was how they're going to take down the big baddie. For those of you that don't know, I am a huge Potterhead. Like, I have all the audiobooks on my phone, and then I just listen to them in rotation. And I for him to be a part of, that franchise, and when I heard that he passed away in 2016, it was one of those, deaths that affects you. Even though you don't know the man or the person, you just stop and you just kind of like, oh, wow, type things.
Yeah. No, for sure. It was a big loss. Other notable roles, he played Ronald Reagan in Lee Daniels' The Butler, which is a good movie. His last role was Alice Through the Looking Glass, the sequel to Alice in Wonderland from Tim Burton. It was directed by somebody else. He was also in Eye in the Sky, which was a really good movie with Dame Helen Mirren. He directed A Little Chaos with him and Kate Winslet. Anyway, just a great actor through and through. Gave his all for every performance. So he is missed, will be missed, and will continue to be missed every time around the holidays when people rewatch Die Hard and Love Actually, two of our favorite holiday films. And so I mean, he left his mark, and that's, what else can you say? So Alan, wherever you are, we hope you're resting in peace. All right, so moving on, we are going to go to Awfully Good or Just Plain Awful. Wayne, did you get a chance to watch this one this week?
I'm familiar.
That's a great way to start.
Well, no, this was a rough one for me again.
Yeah, I can understand. The problem, I mean, the thing is like, like, as a plot, it's not awful, but then when you look at the delivery and the screenplay and the acting and the characters, it's like, all right, so it had a decent plot, and then it missed every single mark all the way down. The movie we're talking about is called No Contest. It's a 1995 straight-to-video action flick. If you're familiar with video stores in the 90s, these movies were all over the place. You saw cover boxes of actors that you recognize from other movies, and you're like, hey, I know that guy. That must be a good movie because he was in this one movie a long time ago.
Or stand-up comics who are trying to break into
Yes. I'm sorry. Are you talking about Andrew Clay?
Yes.
Because he is not credited as Andrew Dice Clay in this, even though he was definitely known as Andrew Dice Clay by this time in 1995.
I don't know what I was expecting from Mr. Clay to be anybody other than himself. But, well, and you know what's funny? Andrew Dice Clay is in one of my favorite, just good, bad films, The Adventures of Fort Fairlane.
Yes.
I really love that movie, and he's very much himself in that movie.
So, this
one just not so much.
So the reason I picked this movie, Wayne, if you're not aware, and you probably are after you watched it, is it's kind of like Die Hard. And when I looked up bad Die Hard movies, this one was at top of the list because it's bad and it steals the plot from Die Hard. So when I first saw the cover box in the movie and it said Shannon Tweed, Robert Davi, and Andrew Dice Clay, I was like, okay, so Robert Davi's going to play the John McClane role. I was wrong. Robert Davi, who is actually in Die Hard, who plays one of the FBI agents, is a guy with a cane who is basically outside the building most of the time. He's basically Al from Die Hard. That's what he is. What this movie was, and if you're familiar with Shannon Tweed, she was a star of a lot of Skinamax movies, which for you young kids, Skinamax means softcore adult movies that would air on Cinemax, which is a TV network owned by HBO, late at night.
You might see some slow motion boobs.
Yes, exactly. And she was famous for those movies. So I'll be honest, when I saw her in this movie, and she's the top billing, I wasn't sure what her role was going to be. I figured we'd probably be seeing some TNA or stuff like that, because that's just what she was known for back then. There's no shaming or anything. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just what she did. So I assumed that's what it was. I was wrong, because what they did was they basically combined the John McClane and Holly Gennaro role into one character. And that is Shannon Tweed, who plays the damsel in distress, then turns into John McClane, which I thought was really interesting to have that type of setup. Now, it wasn't handled very well, and it wasn't done very well, but it was interesting.
And, that really would work. It's like, the character's got to step up.
Yes.
And especially now when, people are finally embracing a strong female lead.
Yes.
I think this, if done correctly, a fantastic film.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I will.
Again, it's one of those movies where it wants to be entertaining, and and that's what the thing is like, I wanted to at least get some laughs out of it. And there were some, but there weren't enough for me to be like, wow, this movie's going to be awfully good. It was just bad, or just plain awful, as we say. And I did want to touch on a few things, though. The wig and mustache that Andrew Clay comes in with in the beginning of the movie are so awful that how you could actually think that's his real hair and his real mustache, I don't know. So, like, the fact that he gets let in and and then it's very Die Hard, like, they shoot the guy out almost immediately. And then... So then you have, so terrible wig and mustache on Dice. I wrote that down. You have Rowdy Piper in this movie, who basically, he plays... You forgot about him for a second, didn't you, Wade? He plays the Dice Man's right hand, Iceman. Yes.
That character's named Ice and Vic.
Or is it not Iceman, it's Ice, that's right. My favorite line had to be, there's two contenders here. The first one, though, was this. It looks like I iced Ice, which is said by Shannon Tweed's character when she presumes that she killed Ice, which we find out later that he's not actually dead. So it really doesn't make any sense because he's still alive. The other one is when Dice is fighting Shannon Tweed, and she says, "Oh, were you going to hit a woman?" He goes, "I hit everybody equally." I was like, what? And because you could tell Dice wasn't buying into the comedy, he didn't deliver it like a comedy line. He just delivered it like a dude saying a line, and it just wasn't good. And
for me, like he's trying to channel Sylvester Stallone, but just way off the
Oh
mark.
God, it was so bad. And my other favorite part too is when she rigs up one of her bracelet to blow up, because the plot doesn't really matter, but these beauty pageant people have bracelets on that are bombs, and she rigs Shannon Tweed rigs hers up to blow when someone goes into a room, and the way Dice walks in and kind of like looks at it and then very casually closes the door and walks away is so bad that I was like, what? You could tell there was no direction. The director was like, all right, just walk in and close the door, and then walk out and close the door. He's like, okay, that's it? Like, yep, that's exactly what he did. He didn't look concerned. He didn't seem to care that there was a bomb about to go off, which then eventually kills his girlfriend, who was an inside victim of the kidnapping of the beauty pageant contestants, which was a weird twist, but whatever. It works, I guess. And then you have the...
Oh, did it?
Okay, it didn't work. You're right. You have then the computer guy who's just some weird, like, straight out of Hackers tool bag. Just so bad. Just really awful stuff. Then you have, like, the dirty hippie looking gunman who just gets killed pretty easily. Shannon Tweed ends up, like, just basically going on, like, a massacre of all these people, which is kind of funny. The other part, they have the Wilhelm Scream, which is if you know films, it's when someone falls from a building, usually in here. It's like, what? They very quietly played it in this movie, which was strange. I've never heard it so, like, It was like, okay, like, you have permission to play that thing loudly. Like, why would you just come and play like a little whale? That's as Dice falls too. So he does die. Sorry to spoil that one. And then it's a few things at the end. You have Robert Davi uses Kane to attach himself to the elevator as it goes up. Like he's some sort of like heroic, like big dude. He's like freaking 50 already at this point, it seems. It was so out of place. It was bizarre. And then he like muscles himself up onto it, which obviously it's not him pulling himself up. And then he doesn't even really do anything. Like he gets up there and he's not even the one that kills them. So it was so stupid. And then he gets away. That's right, because then Dice gets away and then he gets killed again later. It's just so dumb. And then the last part we'll talk about is that kiss at the end. It was so out of place and strange between Shannon Tweed and Robert Davi. It was like they were watching Die Hard as they made this movie. And they're like, well, we got to have a kiss in there somewhere. Even though there's no chemistry at all between these two people. They barely met in the movie. They already knew each other, I guess, is what it's kind of portrayed. But they didn't have any chemistry, really. And just to add it in at the end was so lame. Because there was no, like, romance on the phone or anything. It was just kind of weird. It was just really out of place. You could just tell, again, they were just following the pieces of Die Hard to make this movie. They're like, all right, their storyboard was basically scenes probably videotaped of Die Hard. They're just like, all right, we got to have this scene. We got to shoot this guy right away here because they did it Die Hard style. We got to have a bad guy fall off of something because of Die Hard. And they do all of it. They do every single bit of it. It's so weird. But yes, I mean, it's not super enjoyable like last week's movie. It's just kind of a mess. And it would have been better, I think, if they went all in on the cheesiness, but they didn't. They tried to make it seriously, and that's where it kind of falls short, I think.
They tried to make it seriously, but they didn't really put the effort in there to make it serious. And
nope.
Like, I don't know. Like if I'm Andrew Clay or Shannon Tweed want to be considered legitimate film actors, we should try a little bit harder, but not so much.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say about this movie, what's weird too, Wayne, is that I found a poster with Shannon Tweed on it, but the ones they use to advertise this movie do not include her, which I thought was really strange. And I don't know if that's like to today's audiences on like Amazon or because no one knows who Shannon Tweed is these days, but like she's the star of the movie. Like her picture, her name's on the cover, but her picture isn't on the cover. I was like,
It's Clay and Daisy.
Yeah,
like,
with their giant heads.
More important movie than
yeah.
The Explosion more important than.
And it looks like if you look at that poster, and they actually changed the order of the cast too, because Shannon Tweed is actually first billed in the credits. So it's supposed to be Shannon Tweed, Robert Davi, Andrew Clay. They gave Clay the front, and they make him look like he's some sort of James Bond character. Instead, he's a villain. So I don't understand what they're like. He looks like he's a super spy in the front of that, and that Robert Davies is the bad guy. But Robert Davi is he's just a guy, and they never really tell you. Or no, he was in like intelligence or something. They tell you it doesn't matter. It really did. I chose this movie for a reason. It didn't work out. It wasn't very good. I apologize to you, Wayne, for having to watch it. It just wasn't very fun. It was a typical 90s action movie. Hopefully people will see our names on the VHS cover and rent it, grab, and that's all it was. And it really isn't much more beyond that. Maybe you get drunk with some friends and you'll enjoy it when you can do that, when it's safe to be around people again. But overall, you could probably skip this one.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say awful.
All right, so moving on, we will get into our what we've seen recently. And I have, if you follow me on social media, you will have seen probably most of the ones that I'm going to talk about. But I just wanted to mention them real quick and say what I thought of them. So, did I talk about Queen's Gambit last week? I think I did. Yeah, I did. Okay. Gemini Man. Well, let's talk about Queen's Gambit real quick. Queen's Gambit is a miniseries on Netflix. Really good. Anya Taylor-Joy, very good in this movie. In this series. Definitely check it out if you're a fan. It's about chess, so it may not seem like it's everyone's cup of tea, but it's really good. I really highly recommend it. Scott Frank, who did The Lookout, directed it and created the series with Alan Scott. And his other show, Godless, on Netflix, also very good. You need to check out both of those. I did watch Gemini Man, directed by Ang Lee, starring Will Smith and a younger Will Smith. And also Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Huh?
Jaden? A young Will Smith?
No, a digitally young Will Smith. And Benedict Wong as well. You know, if you follow me again, I posted it. It's not great. The script needs work. It's really just visually, it's really cool to look at, and I appreciate that. Ang Lee is trying to go in that route, and kind of, I think he's trying to give us his visual masterpiece. With the last two movies he's done, they just haven't been well received, and I haven't seen the last one yet, but Gemini Man I have watched, and the script is just not good, and it's David Benioff, one of the guys from Game of Thrones, so maybe he was a little busy on something else when he was writing this thing. It just is not very well written. The dialogue is not great. The story is very simple.
Are you telling me that a David Benioff creation is not good?
Another one I watched was Sound of Metal with Riz Ahmed.
Second, real quick.
Yeah.
I talked about this in your post, but I want you to just touch on this a little bit. How does Ang Lee go from Brokeback Mountain and like Life of Pi, good script-wise, right, to Life of Pi, very visually pretty,
yes.
Like. Could you just touch a little bit on, like, where do you see, like, is he just going for effect and kind of scripting?
So I think Ang Lee, as I mentioned in the post, I think he is trying to visually do stuff that people aren't doing right now. He's trying to perfect digital effects in the way that they look very realistic and very beautiful looking on screen. And he's kind of ignoring the screenplay at the moment. My hope is that he goes back to picking up great screenplays. He did not write this one. He's written quite a few of his other ones where they were actually really good, especially his older ones that he did. It's very similar if you look at something like The Hulk, which a lot of people don't like. But visually, I would say The Hulk was really good, with the exception of the Hulk itself, because he changes size so much. But the way that movie looked, it looks amazing. And people didn't like the story. That's kind of how this one is it looks really good. The story is just kind of a mess. It's very simplistic when it's supposed to be not simplistic. So it's like, it just didn't work. It didn't work. But I will say, like I said, there are things I enjoyed about it, and I do plan on watching it again at some time in the near future. Just enjoying the other elements of it. Because Will Smith is good in it. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is good in it as well. And so is Clive Owen as the evil doctor who creates the clone, Will Smith. But yeah, it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. And it should have been better, because Ang Lee, like we said, 2 Oscars for Best Director for Brokeback and Life of Pi, has such a great track record. Lots of other great movies. Has often been about doing experimental stuff in his films. Look at Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And this one just wasn't as successful as some of the other ones. It is on Amazon or Hulu if you want to check it out. I did watch Sound of Metal, which is an Amazon Prime original movie. It's with Riz Ahmed, who the star of Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal. He gives a great performance as a drummer who starts to go deaf. He's a drummer of a metal band with his girlfriend. They're a couple. They're kind of stuck together, and he starts to lose his hearing. And obviously, as a drummer, that starts to drive him kind of insane. And it's really cool just to see where he goes throughout the movie. It's a great movie. I really recommend this one. It's a drama. It has one of those endings that you're like, is it really an ending? But it's an independent movie, so you kind of have to go along with it. I think a lot of people will just write it on his performance, which was fantastic. Olivia Cooke from Ready Player One also gives a really good performance in this as his girlfriend. Just a really good movie. It's on Amazon Prime. The other one I watched was Greenland, which is the new Gerard Butler disaster movie. I didn't mind it. I actually kind of liked it. It's the world's ending, and him and his wife and his son were chosen as the special people to go on this place to be saved in Greenland, which they don't find out till later that that's where it's at. Stuff happens, obviously, and they aren't able to get on the planes and stuff because other people are upset that they're not chosen to go on these planes. And they end up getting separated. He has to find his family. The main reason I like this movie, though, I want to talk about is that it's about one family. So you're stuck with this one family the whole movie, and that's how I like my disaster movies, because it allows you to kind of invest in the characters and the emotional parts of the film a lot better than trying to keep track of like 12 different characters and really care if they live or die. This family, by the end of the movie, you care whether they live or die. It's very emotional. It's done really well. It's a disaster movie, but you could tell it didn't have a big budget. There aren't as many like big budget effects, so they had to rely on the emotion of the characters and the character development, which I thought was really good in this movie. I said decent film, and I would say just as far as disaster movies go, it probably stands about at the top for me. But there are, I'm not a big fan of the genre, so it's not something that I would normally tell people to go watch. But when it comes out on HBO Max sometime in the near future, I do recommend people seeking it out and watching it. I thought it was very entertaining. I do want to talk about the movie we reviewed last week, which is Happiest Season. I did watch it again, Wayne, as I said I would. I enjoyed it again a second time. I thought it was very fun still. I do want to point out it broke Hulu's record of the most views by one of their movies in a weekend for opening weekend. It broke the record previously set the week before by Run, another movie that we both liked and reviewed on Hulu. It also had the most record signups on Hulu. So this movie has been driving people to go to Hulu. So go watch this movie, Happiest Season. Now's the right time. It's the holiday season. It's on Hulu. Kristen Stewart, Mackenzie Davis. Aubrey Plaza, who we talked a little bit about last week. Watching it again, like, she is really good in this movie, as we mentioned last week. It's a little bit of a different role for her. She's not as goofy and weird as she normally is, but she's really good. A lot of people wanted her to kind of have maybe a happier ending than she ends up having. There's been rumors of possibly of a sequel where we get to see her character kind of find love, because everyone loved her character so much. And she was really good. And her and Kristen Stewart have great chemistry in this movie.
Absolutely. It's set up like, oh, she's going to try and break them up and whatnot. And no, it's not the case at all. She's just a good character.
Yeah, she's a good character, a nice person, in the movie. And it's a really good third main character to kind of come in and steal a couple scenes like she does. And she's just really good in it. And I wanted to kind of emphasize that a little bit more this week. All right, Wayne, you got anything for this week of what you've watched recently?
Yes, I finally finished Sons of Anarchy. And, gosh, what do you say about season 7 of that show? Just
so freaking good.
And just the heartache and heartbreak, and remembering that this is a loosely based, it's based on Hamlet. Basically, it's another take on Hamlet. Just gosh, the pain that Jack Teller is in and goes through, and what he is subjected to, and just his actions and what his actions lead to, and it's hard to watch. So it's hard to feel for that character. And Charlie Hunnam did a great job bringing Jack Teller to life. As I finished Sons of Anarchy, I rolled right into Mayans. Nice. Very excited about that. So I will be talking more about that in the future. I haven't even finished the first episode yet, just because I'm still just coping with saying goodbye to Sons. But there's that. I'm rolling through Dawson's Creek still. I love Dawson's Creek. It's been an adventure. It's been one of the most rewatches that I've ever part in. Just looking at the characters from a parent and as an adult. Again, when I went through the series as a late teens, young 20s, and just how I react to it differently. I really am enjoying my rewatch of that. Also, The Mandalorian. I hinted at something big that happened last episode. This week's episode, or the newest episode that's out, episode 14. Oh, it's got a surprise for you that will make nostalgic fans very, very happy. And that's all I'm going to say. Wow, The Mandalorian is great. Season 2 started off a little bit slow for me, but yeah, man, it's going right now, and I'm looking forward to next week's episode. So that's what I'm dealing with right now, and I'm enjoying it.
Nice, man, nice. All right, so we're gonna get into news. We got something big to talk about here. But I'm gonna roll through a couple of these other things. So news this week: Macon Blair, who was one of the stars of Green Room and Blue Ruin, and the director of the Netflix movie I Don't Feel at Home in the World Anymore with Elijah Wood, is to write and direct the new Toxic Avenger movie starring Peter Dinklage. Pretty excited about this. I'm a huge Toxie fan, and I'm a huge Peter Dinklage fan. Not sure if he's going to be playing Toxie, which would be awesome if he was, or if he's going to be playing another character. But that's a great get for them, and Macon Blair is a phenomenal talent. I'm looking forward to that. Black Panther 2 starts filming in July. It is rumored that they will shift the focus to Shuri, which is what we had talked about and hoped that they would do. I don't know if that means she's going to become Black Panther or what's going to happen, but that's what's been talked about.
I'm very curious to see how they're going to handle what's going on.
Yeah.
Losing Chadwick. And
yeah. It'll be...
And I'm a little bit nervous because if they don't, I was gonna say if they don't do it correctly, it's gonna upset and hurt a lot of fans.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit nervous for it, but it's Marvel. They are always top notch with their decision making and whatnot. Usually. So I very cautiously.
I am too. Clive Barker regains the rights to Hellraiser starting at the end of 2021, so that's big news. There's a remake of the movie. There's a show coming out on HBO for that. I'm excited for both of those things. Aubrey Plaza, we just talked about her. She's joining Jason Statham in an untitled Guy Ritchie film, which I love Guy Ritchie films. His last one, The Gentleman, is very good. Stowaway with Anna Kendrick and Toni Collette is a sci-fi thriller bought by Netflix. Armie Hammer to play producer Al Ruddy in The Offer, which is a TV series for Paramount Plus, which is a new thing that's launching, about the making of The Godfather. There's a movie about that coming out as well with Oscar Isaac and Jake Gyllenhaal playing. Gyllenhaal plays a different producer. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but Isaac will play Francis Ford Coppola in that. Elliot Page is transgender and will still appear as Vanya on The Umbrella Academy. People should watch that show especially. Congratulations, Elliot Page, for making this big milestone in his life. And you know him from Juno and many other things, but Juno mainly. Oscar nominated for that. Let's see here. Eastern Promises is getting a sequel finally, but it may not be what everybody was hoping for. It's called Small Dark Look. It's in the works from the original writer without Mortensen or Cronenberg involved at the moment. Jason Statham in talks to star. It takes place in the same universe. So if you're familiar with Eastern Promises, it was a Russian mob movie starring Viggo Mortensen. I thought it was fantastic. I love David Cronenberg, and it was a great movie. Interested to see where this goes. Not super pumped about it because they removed Mortensen and Cronenberg, but we'll see. Oscar Isaac has been cast to play Solid Snake in the Metal Gear Solid movie. That's big news. I've been working on that thing for years. The next big news, the final big news moment that we have this week is we announced a couple weeks ago that Warner Brothers was releasing Wonder Woman 1984 straight to HBO Max and theaters for 30 days only on HBO Max, and then it'll go through its whole process. They're now doing that with their entire 2021 catalog. So every movie that comes out in 2021 that's Warner Brothers will go to theaters and HBO Max for 30 to 31 days. And I have that list. So I'm going to kind of run through it a little bit, Wayne. There's someone that we're going to be reviewing a lot of these, I would say. It looks like, so as of right now, these dates could change. But right now they have The Little Things, January 29th. That stars Denzel Washington, directed by John Lee Hancock. And it's about a sheriff that Denzel plays. It also has Rami Malek in it as well. The next one, Tom and Jerry, March 5th. That's the animated film, obviously, Tom and Jerry. This one, Wayne, will definitely review. The Many Saints of Newark, which is the prequel movie to The Sopranos, will be going to HBO Max in theaters same day. So that's a big one because we were both looking forward to seeing that. Would love to see it in theaters, but you know what? I'll take seeing it at home. I'm looking forward to that. Reminiscence, which stars Hugh Jackman. That's another one coming out. That one's in April 16th. This is a big one. Godzilla vs. Kong, May 21st. That is going to be theaters and HBO Max same day like we talked about. That's huge. So I know my son's looking forward to that. We will be watching that one for sure. Possibly try to go see it in theaters if everything's looking up by then, but we'll see. Another big one. My wife loves these movies, as do I. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, June 4th. Let's see. In the Heights is the new musical that was based off of Lin-Manuel Miranda's first musical, June 18th. Space Jam: A New Legacy. LeBron James. July 16th. Let's see. The Suicide Squad by James Gunn. The new kind of reimagining of the Suicide Squad. August 6th. Dune, October 1st. Remake of that, another adaptation. King Richard, about Serena and Venus Williams' father, who was their manager for a long time, starring Will Smith. That comes out November 19th. That'll probably be a big Oscar one. The Matrix 4, obviously, huge movie, supposed to go to theaters. It will be in theaters, but will be straight to HBO Max for 30 days. The other issue they got to worry about with these movies, once they release them digitally, they're everywhere. So even though they'll be in theaters the 30 days, after the 30 days on HBO Max, they'll be digitally everywhere for everyone to watch on streaming services and whatnot. So other ones that are coming out in 2021 that they haven't given dates to yet, Judas and the Black Messiah will probably be towards the end of the year because that's supposed to be another Oscar caliber one. Mortal Kombat was originally going to be January, but I think they're thinking it's going to be the third one. So maybe after the Denzel movie or after the Sopranos movie, somewhere in between there. I'm excited about that one. I know, Wayne, you're not big into the fighting movies, but I'll tell you right now, we will be watching that. Those Who Wish Me Dead, from Taylor Sheridan, who wrote and directed Wind River, wrote Hell or High Water, and Sicario, and writes and directs a lot of the episodes of Yellowstone. That's his new movie, so I'm looking forward to that because he is a phenomenal talent. And Cry Macho, a new Clint Eastwood movie. Another one without a date. Malignant by James Wan, another one without a date. And that is that. So that's the news. Let me go back to... I'll run through this real quick. 2019 Pinocchio movie from Roberto Benigni. Yes, he did another Pinocchio one. This time he plays Geppetto instead of the creepy Pinocchio. Supposed to be much better. Getting released finally. Firefly Lane TV series with Katherine Heigl and Sarah Chalk hits Netflix February 3rd. And that's it. So we're another long episode. Shit, we ran real long this week. Didn't expect that. But we had a lot to talk about. And it was fun. So, yeah.
A blast.
Yep. So thank you to everybody for listening. We always have fun doing this. We look forward to next week. And just a reminder, you could follow us at Facebook and Instagram at Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. On Twitter at Now_Wayne. Email us at nowshowingwithmikeandwayne@gmail.com. You can follow me at We Are Screwed 2 at Twitter. At Mike1830 at Instagram, and for Facebook, it's at Michael Kirkpatrick. It's the one with the Now Showing logo. Wayne, you can follow him at Wayne Yerke on Twitter, at Wayne_Yerke on Instagram, and at Wayne Yerke on Facebook. You could also listen to us on YouTube at Entertainment Buffet's YouTube page. Just search them, subscribe to them. Our episodes will pop up. 1 through 6 are out now up there. There's just releasing a little bit at a time. And that's a new venture that we're excited about, where hopefully that brings more fans and people start to listen to us more than they are now. So that's our show. For Wayne Yerke, I am Michael Kirkpatrick. Thank you for listening to Now Showing with Mike and Wayne.